Thanks for staying with us. Now, the current population of Nigeria in 2021 is about 211,400,708, a 2.55% increase from 2020. The population of Nigeria in 2020 was about 206,139,589, a 2.58% increase from 2019. Now, according to macrotrend.net, Nigeria's population has been increasing rapidly for at least the last 5 decades due to very high birth rates, quadrupling its population during this time. Now, growth was fastest in the 1980s after child mortality dropped rapidly and has slowed slightly since then as the birth rate has declined slightly. By 2050, it is forecast that the population in Nigeria will double compared to 2019, reaching over 400 million people. How ready are we for this? And what will be the impact on our economy? Now, please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Elsie knows my routine. I just want to hear your thoughts before I bring in our guest. You must have thoughts, you auntie. Are you not going to contribute to the population?
Me? I'm not sure yet.
Really?
I'm not sure.
As you find like this?
Like you don't want kids?
Is it by fine? I'm not sure yet, honestly.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. But I think we need to watch it. I think that many people do not care and they do not understand the impact. And this thing I always hear about, I say this thing a lot. Now God, they take care of children. It doesn't make sense to me because I don't know how you want to have a child and you don't have a plan, right? And you just feel like, oh, I have to reach out to somebody to help me. I mean, if you are alone and you are reaching out to people to help you, I think it's a bit easy to help you, right? I'm not saying be a burden in that regard, but when you begin to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I saw a tweet, I think I shared that tweet with you, of a guy who said that they helped a man take care of his family because he lost his job during the pandemic. The wife got pregnant, and then the hospital bill and all that, they understood, right? They are not even married, and then suddenly he's coming back again to say the wife...
School fees.
Not school fees.
She was pregnant again.
Not pregnant again. She's in the hospital and she needs to be released. So she has given birth again.
That's what I'm saying.
You know,
she got pregnant again.
She don't even get better bond again. You know, so we need to watch it. And I know when we talk about these things, it feels like you don't want to be productive, as the Bible, the quote, go into the word and multiply. But we need to multiply with sense.
Multiply with sense.
Yeah.
For me, I would say, okay, there's this story. I think the biggest culprit when it comes to population control is people in rural areas, in the villages. Because I'll tell you the story. My grandmother's one of her close friends. She's late now. When she was alive, she would tell us stories that, and her kids would, you know, agree to it, that she went to the doctor one time and said that she had 9 kids and she was ready to have more. She went to the doctor and said that. So the doctor told her there are a lot of eggs, you know, that she still has a lot of eggs. So she was like, I need to harvest all of them because she rears chicken, so she does poultry. But yeah, a lot of people are ignorant about family planning, and it's just because the people in the cities, you have 2. A lot of people are settling for 2, 3, but in the rural area, that's why you see them having 7,
15.
And then they're exactly, and then they're sending them out as house helps and all that. So the major focus should be.
For me, I think my biggest worry in all of this conversation, I look at what we've put on ground in terms of infrastructure. I really do not even understand where this coming from. We're talking about housing just now. I don't know where this population boom, where they will put all of us. You understand? As it is right now, there are many people that are homeless on the streets and all of that. So if this truly does happen, and we see that the infrastructural growth is not commensurate to the kind of, it doesn't look like they're envisaging, right, what the population boom will look like. So tell me how, I mean, on this Lekki-Ekpe Expressway, because we know that a lot of young families moved down towards Ekpe and all of that. A lot of young families are building houses, buying houses. We know the gridlock that we face on that road. I hear that they are building an alternate road. I'm just saying that, okay, just imagine if these numbers now double with this same infrastructure. It's just going to be chaotic, right? But it's not for me to say. We'll bring in our guests. Zeal Akaraiwe currently runs, is it Graham Blake Adversary a financial advisory firm focusing on risk management using derivatives, and has over 20 post-graduation experience in the financial sector with working experience spanning across Lagos, London, and Lusaka. I know Zeal is going to kill me, but it's fine. Zeal has a unique outlook to life, which I love, and has always, he would always leave you more knowledgeable than he met you. At least I can attest to that. So he's joined us live in studio. Thank you so much, Zeal.
Thank you very much.
Before you murder me, I already murdered myself. How do I pronounce your firm?
It's Graham Black.
Graham
Black.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So you heard our conversation about this population, what's it called? The population explosion that we're experiencing right now in Nigeria, and you know what we're saying about the future in 2050 rather. The forecast is that we're going to be about 400 million. Currently we are over 211 million. That's according to the statistics. So what do you think the impact of this would be? You know, how do we even start the conversation first? You know, when you hear population boom in Nigeria, what comes to your mind first before I come back to you?
Well, I don't even know how to answer that. But controlling the population is something that we need to do. I'm not sure we have the means on how to do it. But that's something we really need to sit down to figure out. The second thing is we actually need to be sure what the population is, because we really and truly do not know what the population is.
Well, because according to the report, it says that the last census was in 2006, right?
Yes.
And that gave us a population figure at 140 million. And over 15 years now, there has been really no census. Some of these things are just estimated numbers that they're giving us, right? So I really don't know. If you say whether we should know the figures, how do we even start that conversation?
A census needs to be done. Okay, let me rephrase that. A credible census needs to be done. I don't think we're as many as the population figures say. So the 2006 census was the last census we did. After that, what we should typically do, because your population is, once you've counted, your population is rather straightforward to figure out. It's your births minus your deaths. And immigration. I mean, it's a formula you use.
Yeah.
So if you were to register every birth and death after your population census, you don't need to do another census. You just check how many people were born, how many people died, how many people immigrated, how many people immigrated. Whatever the figure is, you know what the population in country is. But we don't register all our births. We don't register all our deaths. So what the Population Commission does is use a formula. Roughly, this is the birth rate, this is the death rate, rough estimate. So we grow the population by a fixed, if I remember correctly, 2.5% a month per annum. Something along those lines, yes.
So that's probably why that figure said, you know, it's just about 2.58,
2.5 per annum for since the last census.
So they just keep doing that. But what do you think this gap is, right? Since we really do not know, what do you think the gap is on our economy?
I mean, look at it this way. You have a house and you need to budget how much food to buy for the house and how much to set aside for school fees and how much to set aside for everything. And they ask you how many of you are in the house, and you say, I don't know, I'm just setting aside some money. It won't work. It simply won't work. There is no way you can do any type of planning regarding resources without knowing what you're planning for. So for instance, there's this figure being thrown around that we have somewhere between 10 and 13 million out of school children. How many teachers do we need for them? How many schools do we need for them? Where are they? What's their geographical spread? If we don't have that data, then we would never solve the problem. So that's what the data is for. The data is meant for planning, but unfortunately, not very many people that actually do the planning believe in data.
Okay, so help us understand the importance of these data statistics on decision making and governance. How does it work?
Let's take education, which is the crux of development, right? And let's assume we have 10 million children out of school and we want to put them back into school. Or let me rephrase. Let's say we have children out of school that want to put back into school. How many schools? If you don't know how many children and how many teachers, how many arms. If you don't know that, how do you start to plan? So, for instance, if you have 10 million children out of school and you decide, you know what, for quality education, given where we, okay, let me not say quality, given where we are, we need a teacher-student ratio of 1 to 50. If you have 10 million children out of school, then that means you need 200,000 teachers. Where are you going to get them from?
They're not available. Wow.
Now, if you now say, okay, you know what, we need 200,000 teachers for this teacher-student ratio so that we can get these children back in school, at least not even school, back to learning. We need 200,000 teachers. These teachers, we don't have them. So we need to train teachers. For teachers, okay, we need a teacher-teacher trainer ratio of 10 to 1. Okay? So we need 20,000 people to train 200,000 teachers to train 10 million children. That's what you plan. So where do we get that 20,000 from? Do we then import them? Whatever you do, you then have a number to work with. What's the cost of these 20,000 professional trainers that will train the 200,000? So we know they will train them over the next 3 years. Over that 3-year period, what are we going to do regarding the accessories for education? The classrooms, the curriculum, all of that. Then you can put numbers on that. Then you can plan and say, to get 10 million children out of school, this is how much we need over the next 10 years. If you don't have that figure, then it's a non-starter. And anything else that's said is lip service.
Wow. Our statistics are so unreliable, I'm telling you. But now my question is, obviously you know about the media regulatory thing that we borrowed from the Asian countries, maybe China and a couple of other countries. So looking at this population, I would like to ask you, what kind of population do you think Nigeria has exactly? And do you think it is about time that we maybe put some population control like China did for a while, and maybe have just 2 or 3 kids, put a ban on the amount of children you can have?
Well, I think our population is far less than we think it is, personally.
Okay.
I'll explain why later. Do we need to put measures in place like what China did? Yes. Do we have the capacity to? No.
No.
So for instance, if you tell somebody, don't have more than 2 children, and he has 3, what will you do?
How do you monitor?
How do you monitor? And what will you do if he does not? So don't forget, it's a negotiation, it's a give and take. If, for argument's sake, we had a universal health care system, and we tell people, for your 2 children that we register, health care is free, education is free. Anything more than that, you will pay a penalized amount for that. Then somebody's going to wait and think, please, it's not worth it.
Let me just stay within the...
So you have to give something to be able to get people to comply. In our circumstance, what are we going to give? So if you tell somebody, don't have more than 2 children, and he goes and has 6, what exactly will the government do? Take
exactly.
the 4? You don't have the capacity to take the 4 from him, and if you take the 4 from him, he would actually be happy. Because, quite a few people have children they can't take care of, and they go to the orphanage and drop them willingly and go and visit them every week because the orphanage will take care of them. So yes, we need to put measures in place, but do we have the capacity to put those measures in place? That's the issue.
Checks and balances.
Yes.
There's a video we saw of Paula Deferrasing, talking about our census, our population. I like to call for that video because it's quite interesting what he said, in that video. Maybe they'll just play that, then I'll ask my question.
I've mentioned the economy, I've mentioned culture. You've got to go into politics and government deliberately. By the way, if we don't fix some of Nigeria's problems today, that is this INEC problem. I will say it plainly. INEC, put me in trouble if you like. It is a fraud. The numbers in Nigeria, as far as census are concerned, and as far as election is concerned, are a lie. And if nobody will speak up about it, the righteous should speak. And our righteousness is not of ourselves. It is of him, and he will protect. Hallelujah. It is important. It is skewed now so that where the numbers are not properly reflected in our voting. This is the only country in West Africa where you move from the ocean to the desert and the numbers decrease, or rather they increase. The only country. It's the only country in the world where you move from a large body of water to little or no water and the numbers increase. It was not Nigerians that started it. It was the parents of Nigeria who were not good parents.
Okay, so we've heard this. A lot of people actually buy this same sentiment. A lot of people are of the opinion that our numbers, I mean, everything that he said in the video. So we're asking, is this even true? Is there any fact in it? And why do people feel this way whenever it comes to things that has to do with our population, and especially when they tie it to politics? But let me not go to politics. But you know the drill now.
Yes.
There's a particular part in the country where they are more populated, that their numbers are always high.
Yes. Yes. So what he said, I would have so much preferred when you say so. The only way you can say something is a lie is by
data. Back it up.
Exactly,
Facts.
back it up. You can't just say this is a lie. What is the truth then? And if you don't have the truth, or if you don't have the capacity to have the truth, at least give some data that says, look, based on this. It's not based on anything, which is what I don't like about what he said. But I have looked at these numbers previously, and like I said earlier, I don't believe our population is as much as we say it is.
Really?
No, I don't. So there are different things you can look at. I looked at a lot of, well, not say a lot, I looked at different numbers that should be correlated with the population, and there is little or no correlation. So for instance, I looked at population by state. I looked at certain metrics that are not, there is no benefit in manipulating, like diesel consumption, petrol consumption, kerosene consumption, mobile phone lines per state, internet penetration per state, BVN per state, as well as PVC per state. And you notice that, I mean, people always come up with the excuse that, oh, you know what, if it's a poor state, they don't have cars, the PMS consumption is not going to be high, the kerosene consumption is not going to be high, they cook with firewood, they don't have bank accounts, and those are all valid arguments. But there's a place where the entire correlation broke down in a very absurd way. So for instance, our workforce, by definition, is people between the ages 16 to 65 that are available to work. Doesn't mean you have a job, but you're available. So if you drop out of school at 15, at 16 you're part of the workforce, you're not going to school. Then your voting population is 18 and above. Mm-hmm. Now in Nigeria, the percentage of Nigerians that are older than 65 is less than 3%. It's actually like 1.something%. The percentage of Nigerians between the age bracket of 16 to 18 is 10%. 10% of our population is in that age bracket.
That's a huge number.
Yes. So you would find that it's, I won't say unusual, it's statistically impossible to have a larger voting population than workforce, statistically, right? So what they're saying is people between 18 and above, which is the total population of 18 and above plus 1%, is more than 16 to 64, which is plus 10%. It doesn't make sense. There are 14 states in the country where this anomaly exists. It is an anomaly to have a higher voting population than workforce, because that you can vote means you are 18 and above. That you're in the workforce is 16 to 65. Now, you have people in the 18 and above bracket that are not available to work, which means they are students. That's the only other explanation. Now, there are 14 states that have this anomaly, and those 14 states are also the states with the lowest
voting turnout.
No, lowest
labor force.
Education turnout.
Oh.
So these people are not in school, they are not at work, but they are available to vote. The coincidence, which is absurd, is all the 14 states that have this anomaly, whatever the reason for the anomaly, I mean, it can exist, but 14 states is a lot to have the same issue. And all the 14 states are in the north.
Okay.
All of them. So it's not like most are in the north. All 14 that have this singular anomaly are in the north. That's something that really needs to be investigated. It's a huge anomaly.
Those are the places where voting
their child
numbers,
voters,
yes, spikes. So shouldn't there be some level of truth inside the conversation that it's a lie?
Well, like I said, you need to be able to have really strong facts. Yes,
but they are not willing to have this fact. You know what? Let's take a break, because I don't think the government is ready for us to face
the government.
Let's go on a break. We'll be right back. You're just tuned in. We're having an amazing chat with Zeal. He's asking me jam question as we're discussing the impact of our population surge on our economy. Now, please let us hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Elsie, I don't have answer for Zeal, please.
You need to find us.
Who is government?
Yeah.
Hey, question.
Okay, so I think I still want to take us back to understanding the implication of this 400 million in 2050
by 2050, yeah,
Nigeria as it is now, because I don't think that we would have an automatic different crop of leaders by that time. So what is going to happen? Like, how worried should we be? And maybe that worry would make us begin to think better.
Well, I'm not a fan of worrying, but but I understand what you're saying. It's a huge population. And a lot of people will tell you that a nation's greatest asset is the population. Yeah. Well, but there's a slight tweak to that. There's an assumption made. So that's not the nation's greatest asset. A nation's greatest asset is an enlightened and educated population. Our issue is not as much the population as it is the population is not educated, not enlightened, and therefore cannot produce. That's our issue. The issue is not how many we are. The issue is we're not producing enough for how many we are. So instead of tackling the population problem as a problem, why don't we convert it to an asset? If we educate people and they produce, then that huge number becomes an asset. The issue we have is that we don't have educated people. If we use our poverty index, give or take, we say about 70% of Nigerians live below the poverty line. If you live below the poverty line, I can safely assume you live below the educated line. Now, okay, let me rephrase. You live below the schooling line because you can be educated outside school. But it's not easy to find people in poverty that are out of school but educated. So we can safely assume about 70% of the population is ill-educated, suboptimally educated. So that's the issue. When they stop being dependent, can they fend for themselves? They can't. If they can't fend for themselves, even though they are no longer dependent on guardians, they are dependent on the system. It's the pressure on that system that is the problem. Now, we are not increasing productivity. I looked at what's called the PMI index, the Purchasing Managers Index. Over the last 6 years, it's gone down about 2%. It's not a good proxy for what to produce. People say GDP is better, but basically, whatever we're producing over the last 6 years has reduced. Yes. And population has gone up. It's going to cause a squeeze. What we need to do is produce more. If we were producing at an optimal rate or with high efficiency, then and population was still increasing and we couldn't take care of that, then that's a really big problem. But we're not producing optimally. Most of our factories are anywhere between 40 to max 60% capacity. And those are the factories we have. Not to talk of the factories we don't even have. So the real issue is not as much a population issue as it is a productivity issue. If you have a house and you have 20 children and you live in a one bedroom and you earn 100,000 a month, it becomes a problem. But somebody else has 20 children and he lives in a 30-room house and earns 40 million a month. The problem is not the number of people. The problem is that you are capacity to produce and provide for the number of people. And that's what Nigeria has an issue with. It's not the number of population is not the problem. The issue is we have not invested in equipping the population to be productive, and the way you do that is through education.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to take you back to what you said when you were answering my earlier question, that we have less population than we are made to believe, and you were going
That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, you said you were going to tell me, tell us why you have that opinion. Yes.
So if you look at all the numbers, if you look at Nigeria's numbers historically, there's a rule of thumb for everything that is counted or allocated by us. The North has 55%, the South has 45%, give or take. if you go through the history of our presidential elections, the winner will have anywhere between 52 to 55% of votes. The loser gets anywhere between 45 or 48. If you check the population, it's the same thing. If you check the number of states, you have 36 states, north and south. You have 6 geopolitical zones. 36 is divided by 2 easily. 36 is divided by 6 easily. But you have 19 states in the north and 17 in the south. Again, 52-48. The only thing that is not in that ratio is the land mass. Because nobody will divide the country. You know, the land mass is 70-something% north and 20-something% south. But everything that is counted, and don't forget our resources, the federal allocation, is whether we one way or the other, it is done by population. The person who wins election, the winner, is done by population. How your local governments are given is done by population. And so if you check it, there is an incentive to inflate population figures, right? The only place there is no incentive to inflate population figures, when you check those figures, the correlation always breaks down, always. We have about, last time I checked, 45 million BVNs in the country. Okay? People will say, now everybody's, we have so many unbanked. Yes, I agree, we have a lot of unbanked. So even if you assume the 45 million BVNs are for 18 and above, then multiply that by 2 for those that are younger, then you have 90 million people, and then the unbanked is half of that. You know, so there is something, but I don't even agree with those figures. BVN is the only one that's completely independent of any need, any incentive to inflate, and it's 45 million. Like I said, a lot of people are not banked, we agree, a lot. But whatever that number is it times 4 of our population? I don't think so.
And last time we had a guest on that, you know, he was saying our banked is, I think, 60%. We have 40% no banked. So
Unbanked, yeah. But I was going to even ask, okay, so what do we look at as a solution? Because...
Sorry, what's the problem?
No, we have a problem.
Yes, which one?
I believe that we're not ready for the population boom that is coming, right? Infrastructure-wise. And, I mean, the economy is not ready for that. So, I liked what you said about, it's not the problem of the population per se, it is the problem of the capacity to manage the population, which is what we have. I mean, you have a lot of people, a family of 15 living under 1,000 naira per day. Like, does it make sense? It doesn't make sense to me. 1,000 naira would not even feed me for an hour, but a family would feed on that. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. You know, so how do we turn this to our favor? And probably, like, you know, because everybody's waiting. You know, it's looking like we are going to fail big, and we're going to fail big time with this, right? But numbers are not always the problem. It is what we do with the numbers that we have. So how do we turn this to our favor to say, you know what, this population is going to come whether we like it or not? So how do we tweak it to ensure that it comes and it becomes an addition to our economy?
I mean, basic thing is education. There's not much you can do.
So you talked about education. Are you talking about schooling in terms of formal education, or you're talking about education in broad?
I'm talking about education. Schooling is one part of education, the formal education. There's the informal. But the point is, you need to educate people. Whether you want to use schools, what we know is schooling, right? Well, schooling is not the same as education. A lot of people, by evidence of our society, are schooled but uneducated. Most of us. Some people are educated but unschooled. But we need to get a large number of our population educated. And by my personal definition of education is the ability to ask the relevant questions to get answers to solve societal problems. Once you can do that, you're fine. We don't do that at all. So even people that go to school come out and are not educated, they don't know how to ask questions, they don't know what questions to ask. And so they don't contribute towards the development of themselves, not to talk of the economy. So if we keep growing an uneducated population, then that is where the problem is. So the question is, what can we do to bring education to people quickly at a standard that allows them to fend for themselves? So for instance, we should, and also, sorry, before I go there, also, we need the thinking of the most polite way to say, we need the government to act in a slightly more cohesive manner in terms of direction. Because on the one hand, you need people educated so that they can fend for themselves and not live off the state. And so they start their own businesses. But at the same time, the state is harassing, for lack of a better word, people doing their own businesses. So there's quite a lot of things we need to do in harmony. And the other thing is we tend to plan, very unfortunately, for the problems we have, we need to be planning in number of generations. We need to say, okay, in 2 generations, which may be 40 years, we would have solved this problem and all that. But we tend to plan in 4 years, 4 year cycles. There is nothing
that can happen
that can be done in 4 year cycles except to maintain status quo. That's all you can do in 4 years, maintain status quo. Because if you want to get 10 million children out of school, back into school, you can't do that in 4 years. The training for their trainers may take you 3 years or 4. In fact, finding the people to do it may take you 2 years.
Yeah.
Then you start, so we have to be talking, okay, in the next 10 years, and what is that? We have the same problem with housing, even though very unfortunately, the Minister of Housing said we do not have a housing deficit. Even though mathematically, I know what he was saying, but he was being very disingenuous in that statement. But again, it's all about planning. You get everybody homed in 4 years. It's not possible. You have to be talking, okay, in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years, these are the milestones we're going to do. These are the laws we're going to put in place. These are the resources we're going to use.
Okay, let me take this message from Benson. He says, good evening, ladies. Beautiful hair, I must say. Figures
Did he say which hair he was referring to?
No, he did not. Figures like water is incompressible. Until leadership comes to terms with these facts, planning and solutions to the citizens may remain a mirage. Yeah.
All right, so I have one says, hi, congratulations to Ways with this educative programs. I'm listening to Mr. Zeal, and I must say this is one of our brilliant minds. Clap, clap, clap.
I think he's our
population,
Kenyan man.
Sorry, not done, not done.
Not done.
And he goes on to say, population with data analysis is a plus. Yeah.
All right, so this is from Zeal Akaraiwe from Zaria. He says, a growing population can generate economic growth for a country that has ideal system in place. Population boom should be seen as an advantage to any developing country when the population is made of able youth. So there is a need for deliberate action towards industrial revolution, which should be channeled towards making our production sector effective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So on that point, let me say something very interesting. Also, when I was talking about cohesion, I found a polite way to say it now. Our government, let me use Lagos State. Right? Lagos State population is growing really fast, and we need to control it. But the government doesn't seem to understand that the policies it has are contrary to its intentions, and we have that a lot of times. So let me use the UK. The UK, Canada, a lot of China now, they want their population to grow. And so they are giving incentives to people to have more children. So in the UK, maternity leave is 9 months.
9 months, yes, so full pay.
You know why? Because they
then
want
the extra 3 months half pay.
Yes, in the US, they don't want their population to grow, so maternity leave is 6 weeks. So it's very inconvenient to have children, and in the UK, it's very convenient to have children. Canada was opening their doors, everybody come inside, you want to, just come on. As long as, they pick, as long as you are educated, you can work, you can add, come in. Lagos State has a booming population that we need to control, but Lagos State gives maternity leave of 6 months. You are now giving incentive for people to have children when your intention is to reduce population. This is like a cat chasing its tail. It's not going to go anywhere.
You think this is about copying policies that work in other countries, but we don't exactly understand how it affects us? He's drinking water. Okay.
Okay. So I want to
not talking my mouth full.
I want to talk about population and the productivity you mentioned.
Yes.
If we're going to get a good number of the population educated and productive, like you have said, you also mentioned earlier that we need to understand how many we are so we can plan in order to make that happen. And the last census, like we said, was in 2006.
Yes.
I think that a census is due, right? But do you think we can get it right? We are ripe for it, but
Yes.
because all the census we've had, you hear, oh, it's indecisive, it's inaccurate, we are being marginalized, it's not done right. It's always been plagued with one issue or the other. And collecting data in Nigeria is a big deal. So do you think we can get our census right in Nigeria?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. We can get it right. Technology has changed a lot. Okay. Now, I do know that there is a proxy for counting people using satellite technology. All right. So you can use heat mapping, and there's technology. You want to have an idea how many people are in an area. You can use satellite heat imagery to calculate that. It won't be exact, but to give you some idea. So that's the starting point. The more important part of population is not just 100 million or 300 million. It's the breakdown of the demographic.
God, we bless you.
That is what. That is really what we need.
Yes.
Now, one of my biggest disappointments is our National Population Commission. You go to their website, and you know what population figure they are quoting? 2006 census. This is our. And then when they tell you more results or more information, you are very excited, and you click on it. Our populationcommission.gov.ng website, our government website. I want to know our population, and I click on more information. It takes me to worldometers.org.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, seriously? You know, this is like INEC. You go to INEC, how many people voted, and it takes you to United Nations website. You know, you are the custodian of data for population, and you're on your website officially.
You are rooting
It's like
somebody else.
wow.
It doesn't make any sense. It tells me we're not serious. So, first of all, to know how many we are, to break down that demographic, we have to understand the importance of the data.
Quickly.
Other than NBS, I'm not sure there's any institution that really understands it.
Okay, so since we are staying on data, I just wanted to add that how do we marry immigration? I mean, there's the NIN now, the National Identification Number. You know, how do we marry those ones? Driver's license. How do we marry it? Would it help in any way to be able to get this population census right?
It should, because my PVC is biometric, my BVN is biometric, my NIN is biometric. I mean, so with all of that, there should be a central check and balance system. There should be. We intend for NIN to be that, but we've already seen there are significant flaws in NIN. But I mean, we don't have to get it perfect on day one, you know. But what we need is something that's accepted as credible for planning, and then over time we can get it perfect. But for now, we don't even have anything that we agree is credible.
Sansi, you have one final question?
Yes, well, I think I would just put out the highlights
yeah.
of what he said that stood out for me is the fact that the problem is not really the population. Our population is an advantage with reference to the countries trying to increase their population. The challenge is that we have a lot of uneducated people and poor planning. And then he said something about planning for generations. And I think that's a major leadership issue because we have a challenge of continuity in Nigeria. So after your 4-year term or 8 years term is over, you come in with another agenda, not prioritizing like what the previous person in leadership had already started. So I think that's a really good highlight for me. It's one of a good way to solve our population
I like the
issues.
generational plan, honestly.
Yeah, planning for generations.
This thing ever since that we can't be talking 8 years. You know, that's why he's not a fan of 2023. Like when you are thinking
What's
of changing,
in 2023?
it's not in my mouth. You know what is happening in 2023. When the time comes, you will find out. You know, so I mean, it's something that we've heard, but we'll find a way to probably beg to bring you back, because I would like for us to find a proper blueprint or something. I don't know, but there has to be a solution that we can. Yes, like for instance, I like what he said about, you know, it's not just the population, breaking down the demographics. So, for instance, they can be 18 to 20-year-olds, but they are not willing to go to school, but they can learn a vocational skill. What are the challenges that we have? Do we need bricklayers? Do we need these? We will train them, and they begin, and you pay them well. You know, so there's a lot of things that can be done. You know, even with the dilapidated, what's it called? Infrastructure and the educational structure that we have, we can actually work with it, but it has to be deliberate.
That's it. It has to be deliberate.
Yes.
We've been doing very haphazard everything.
Yes, it has to be
I just
deliberate.
wish we can run Nigeria from here, but okay, I'm looking out to
No,
20.
don't worry. We are here. We are here. We are looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Zeal.
Thank you.
I hope you come back again.
I hope so.
That kind of answer, we don't like it, you.
If you invite me again, I'll come.
Oh, thank
Great.
you. Thank you. We had a fantastic conversation. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Elsie. Thank you, Sanzi. All right, so before we go, do ensure you follow us on Instagram. It's at PlusTvAfrica. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, we're planning a huge giveaway. Do you like what we're wearing? We're giving you some. All right, just to say thank you to you for believing in the Ways brand and following the conversation. So do well to follow us. It's at PlusTvAfrica. So follow us now. Like, share, comment, and invite your friends and family to join the conversation and follow us as well. All right, so if you missed today's quote, here it is again. Overpopulation in various countries has become a serious threat to the well-being of many people and a grave obstacle to any attempt to organize peace on this planet of ours. That's from Albert Einstein. We'll see you tomorrow as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.